Oh, whoops. Sorry, didn't hear the countdown. That song was really, really quiet or really loud. I don't know. Hello, welcome to the Raedar, episode number 51, where I'm talking about virtual bands. I need to turn myself up here. The Daisy Bell there was really quiet, and this was really loud, so I had to jump up and down. Who am I looking for counting, by the way? Because I wasn't sure who I was looking at in the studio. Okay. Is everything okay? We're good? Okay. In the future, though. Okay, good to know. So, first of all, why did the dog turn into a clown in that video? That's what I want to know. That's in my research. That's what confused me the most. We're talking about virtual bands in this episode. Sorry, I'm a little frazzled. Virtual bands, for those who don't know, are fake people playing music made by real people. That's basically the whole gist. And in case that isn't obvious, you may already have some names popping in your head of who that might be, who that might not be. And based on the previews I've already previously showed you, this will be a very music video heavy episode. In fact, every song we will be playing you has an accompanied video with it because it's a very visual medium. I don't talk about music videos or the visuals of music very often. I did an episode about album covers. That was kind of visual heavy. But I don't actually, for that episode, all I did was go, look at this one. But I do want to talk about virtual bands because I think they're super interesting and they're worth mentioning because you might have a couple in mind. You may not realize how long back or how far back the concept and the history of this actually goes. So, without further ado, why don't we go here into segment 1 where we talk about what's probably the first ever virtual band, the Chipmunks. Oh yeah, baby, Alvin and the Chipmunks. How funny would it be if this whole episode just ended up being about them and I didn't even talk about other groups and I went, oh, that's my time. Anyway, in 1958, that's right, this goes that far back. In 1958, Ross Bagdasarian was a musician. Now, this guy already had a few songs under his belt, but he wanted to go the novelty route. There used to be a type of music people would make called novelty songs, where it was almost just silly and fun for the sake of being silly and fun, but people would call them novelty songs. And in terms of him writing novelty songs, he wanted to make a different persona. So Ross decided to take on the name David Seville. And he wrote a song called Witch Doctor. And Witch Doctor you might be familiar with. And the song is all about a guy who's down on his luck and is in love with this woman. And he wants to convince the woman that he loves her by informing her that the Witch Doctor made it happen. And the Witch Doctor repeated the phrase, ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bang, bang. And it was this expression in the song that when Ross would sing it, or rather David would sing it, it would be high-pitched. So while Ross would sing the song as David, it would be his normal voice, but then when he would quote the Witch Doctor would be speaking in a high-pitched, very shrill voice. He used a tape recorder and would speed up his voice as the Witch Doctor and made it sound like a duet, in short, which for the time was pretty high-tech. 1958, that predates most bands you think that I could mention for this part. And so Mr. Seville, Dave Seville, would release the track Witch Doctor and would go to number 1 for 3 weeks in 1958. That's wild. To hear the song Witch Doctor and be like, yeah, I need to hear that again. I feel like when you listen to Witch Doctor, you're good after that, after the one. You're like, okay, I get it. But this song would be a huge hit for him, and he'd end up being commissioned to make even more novelty music using this high-pitched voice filter thingy. And so one day, while he was out and about at a national park in the United States, he came across a chipmunk who ran across the car right in front of him, dashed right in front of him. And he went and he saw that chipmunk, and it was like an Oppenheimer moment. It was like, that meme of SpongeBob seeing fire for the first time, and it's like it flashes the fire that it's him, and it's the fire than him. It was kind of like that, except for chipmunks. So he decided, why don't I use chipmunk characters for the high-pitched voices? And so, instead of just making one chipmunk, he made 3, if you can believe it, named after I believe, music managers at Universal Music. And obviously, I don't need to tell you, they were named Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. And in 1958, he would record the first Alvin and the Chipmunks song. So the same year that Witch Doctor came out, he wrote the song he wrote what's called the Chipmunks song, aka Christmas Don't Be Late. And I, for one, didn't know that this song was that old. I'll give my opinion in a second here, but let me finish with the info dump here. The song, and I need this to be clear. The Alvin and the Chipmunks would go on to win 3 Grammys and Record of the Year. Chipmunk Mania was in full swing. If there's ever a time for the DCSA to crop out a clip and post to show my show, it's that. And of course, like all good things, there were copycats, such as the Nutty Squirrels and the Banana Splits. Naturally. I mean, obviously those two weren't as popular because you probably never heard of the Nutty Squirrels or the Banana Splits. But Alvin and the Chipmunks were marketed as that, as Alvin, the Chipmunk, and the rest of his Chipmunk gang, or his brothers, I suppose, Simon and Theodore, and Dave Seville, their producer, kind of their dad. Now, I have notes here, obviously, pertaining to the history of certain groups, and I really don't know how much these notes are going to last me because I wrote them in my notes app, so I couldn't really visualize it. Usually I know when I do a Word document how long it'll last me, so this episode I feel like is going to be really loose for a while until I realize, uh-oh, I have no time left, and I rush through the very end. But let's have fun. You know, we're all friends here. Let's talk about Alvin the Chipmunks. I didn't know that they were from the 50s when I was young. I know now. I've known for a while. But I thought that 2004 movie with the live action Chipmunks, I thought that was new. I thought that was the original in my youth until I found out, it's not. Which actually that movie does feature, you know, the Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas Don't Be Late. Actually, I know people are talking in the studio. Can I get a raise of hands who knows that song, Christmas Don't Be Late by Alvin and the Chipmunks? I don't know if anyone's listening. Do we know that song? I don't know. No one's raising their hands, so I'm assuming we don't have any chipmunk heads in the audience. You probably know it if you heard it, which we will play it for you later. But that was pretty much the first major, what am I, sorry, I'm having a blank here. Virtual group. Very first virtual group was Alvin and the Chipmunks, arguably. And, it wouldn't be until 1966 that there would be a different kind of virtual group out on the prowl. And it all goes back to Don Krishner. Do you know Don Krishner? Probably not, but you probably know the sounds he is credited for creating. Don Krishner managed a little group called the Monkees. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've seen the Monkees. The Monkees are real people. Well, actually, no. They were CGI. No, they weren't. The Monkees were real people, using their real names, but as a fake band. They didn't play their own instruments early on, and they didn't write their own music early on. And so what the whole premise of the Monkees was, hey, wow, the Beatles and all these groups are really popular from the British invasion. Why don't we make a TV show of an American group using real people, but write their music for them, pretend they play their instruments, but make it about a band? And so the Monkees were born. Another really funny thing to hear me say out of context, the Monkees were born. But the Monkees were really, really popular. You know, their song Daydream Believer or I'm a Believer or other songs that don't have the word believer. Hey, hey, we're the Monkees. Very cartoony, very 60s, very groovy, very funny. And the band was managed by Don Krishner. Now, Don Krishner was kind of getting annoyed by the group because the group was getting annoyed by Don. Because Don wanted to micromanage them as if they were fake and cartoon characters and at his every whim. But the Monkees progressively wanted to have more independence, wanted to write their own music, wanted to be real musicians. Because these were real people. They weren't playing characters. Davy Jones was Davy Jones. He was playing himself. So eventually they fired Don because they were kind of sick of him. So Don wasn't done managing. Don said, okay, you want independence? You want to do your own thing? How about I make cartoon characters that I can control? And when they don't want to sing, I'll make them sing. So Don did exactly that. He had been called by the creators of the Archies comic strip because they were making a TV show called The Archies. And so the TV show, The Archies, would debut in the late 1960s, and the music would be pretty much managed by Don. Don would not write the music. He would hire musicians and have people play the music, but he would compose it and he would come up with the ideas for it and basically manage the fictional group of the Archies. And so in this TV show, there'd be a new song each episode of this cartoon, and each song would be released as a single. And one particular song that was released as a single, I know at this point you're in suspense because you forgot what song we played you like 10 minutes ago, it would be Sugar Sugar, which was actually written by Andy Kim and Jeff Barry. Andy Kim is Canadian, and he's playing Massey Hall in a few days. So if you feel like hearing the guy who made Sugar Sugar play live, probably not Sugar Sugar, now's your chance. But Sugar Sugar would go to number 1, which was the first for a virtual band. This is huge, guys. It's Sugar Sugar. It's the song everyone loves. It's quintessential bubblegum pop. It's that music video we played you that is insane. Can you imagine pitching that? Archie goes to a kissing booth, gets kissed and turns into a frog, does a little frog dance, and gets kissed again, and he's no longer a frog. Sure. This portion was kind of difficult to research because the Archies are a group, like a band, and they're also a TV show and also a comic. And this led me to find out that Archie has canonically died. Did we know this? That Archie is dead? I don't mean in Riverdale. I mean the comic strip character died for real, which is ridiculous. Also, Riverdale, the Archies, the band, is in Riverdale at one point, except one member is swapped with another member, which, you know, I actually haven't seen very much of Riverdale, but the more I think about it, the more my head hurts. I was trying to think of, like, can you imagine if Phineas and Ferb was adapted into like a A21 or A23 movie, A24 movie, like something gritty like that. It's just such a weird concept. Can you imagine being like a 14-year-old girl getting into Riverdale and being like, I want to see the source material, and they're just, you know, it's so bizarre. But Sugar Sugar's really good. Let's see how many times I've listened to it in the last 24 hours for this episode, because there isn't like a specific amount of music I need to listen to for it, but I did listen to basically the episode, the songs are playing you this episode over and over. My top song is still The Wreck of the Emma Fitzgerald, but I've listened to Sugar Sugar not enough times for it to appear here. That's fine. Sorry, 4 streams. So 11 minutes of Sugar Sugar. It's my 3rd most streamed song. I got Wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald, Born in the USA, and Sugar Sugar. I'm really a card. But it was huge, and obviously the Archies would go on, but Sugar Sugar was a big hit, and everyone knows it for good reason. Now, the Archies would not actually be the biggest virtual band. That title would go to another group that wouldn't be introduced for another 40 or 30 years. And I'm just teasing you that right now because we're going to play the video. Now, coming up after the music break, we'll be talking about the most famous virtual band of all time. Cough, cough. It's on my t-shirt, cough, cough. Please don't forget that you can follow us on social media at the DCSA Media Hub. You can follow me on Instagram at AlexRae, that's R-A-E. You can follow this show on Instagram and Twitter at the Raedar Live, also R-A-E. In the meantime, we're going to play you Clint Eastwood by Gorillaz, but before that, we're playing the Chipmunks song, Christmas Don't Be Late, by Alvin and the Chipmunks, live from the Media Hub on riotradio.ca. Ladies and... It's dark in here. Oh, there I am. Sorry, someone had to turn on the light. That music was so awesome that the lights shut off. Welcome back to the Raedar, episode number 51, the episode where I'm talking about virtual bands. And it wouldn't be a virtual bands episode if I didn't talk about Gorillaz. I love Gorillaz. And I also hear they make music. No, Gorillaz, the band, is incredible. I'm sure the animals are great too. I've always been into Gorillaz. I mean, I say always. I've been into Gorillaz for like 8 or 9 years now. And they were like the first group I ever really, really got into. And I want to really, really get into Gorillaz on an episode. So I may do that later next year, maybe. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So in case I don't really get into the group this time, that's why. But like, I don't really have almost any notes for Gorillaz because it's all in here. This was my first hyperfixation. You think I Mr. Beach Boys or Beatles? No, I was Mr. Gorillaz before anything else. Mind you, this shirt's only a few months old. Thank you, Quinn, for buying it for me. But I love Gorillaz. I love the group a lot. So what is Gorillaz? Well, Gorillaz is this is how every single Gorillaz video essay starts, by the way. Gorillaz is the brainchild of artist Jamie Hewlett and musician Damon Albarn. Damon Albarn was the lead singer and songwriter of the 90s Britpop group Blur, which you may recognize for Song 2, which is Woohoo, that song, or Park Life, or There's No Other Way, or The Universal, or a lot of other really good hits. And Jamie Hewlett made Tank Girl, which is a really cool alternative magazine that was featured in or it's a comic that was featured in a magazine that I think was called Deadline. And these two, one day Jimmy Hewlett would be interviewing Damon Albarn for Deadline, and they two would meet, and they would end up becoming roommates. And while they were roommates, they're watching TV in the middle of the 90s, and they're noticing how fake all these celebrities are. They're like looking at these boy bands, and they're like, geez, like nothing about this is authentic. Nothing about this is real. It's just, as we'd call it now, it's just slop. It's just people slop. So eventually they decide, hey, why don't we work together? I'll make the music, you make the art, and make a fake group and make it fun, make it interesting. You know, if music is going to be pretending to be real but actually be fake and have pitfalls because of that, why don't we just acknowledge that it's fake and make cartoon characters as the band? And so Gorillaz was born. In 2001, well, actually in 1998, they would release their first single, Tomorrow Comes Today, from their album in 2001 called Gorillaz. They're self-titled, which features them on that Jeep in the green and the white background. And this was a huge hit. So the group Gorillaz would feature 2D, a young, in his early 20s, blue-haired, black-eyed, spooky-looking guy who's kind of a wimp. Real name Stuart Pott. Murdoch Nichols is a green-looking, gross bass player. 2D was the lead singer. Murdoch is sort of the head of the band and the bass player who supposedly made a deal with the devil to make his band successful. Russell, who is the drummer, who is haunted by the ghosts of his friends who died in a drive-by shooting that he was in the middle of at the time. And finally, their guitarist, the 8-year-old Noodle, who is a little girl from Japan, who, and this is true, came to them in a not cardboard box, I believe is a wooden crate that came overseas. The Gorillaz wrote in the newspaper, wrote in the paper, needed guitarist, no hippies, and suddenly Noodle popped out of a box that was at their door. She did a guitar solo, jumped in the air, bowed, and said Noodle, and then they were a band. Obviously, I hate to do this to you, but they're not real people, or so I've been told. And so none of that is true, but a big feature that Gorillaz added into the virtual artist lexicon was the add of lore, of these being real characters with real pasts. You know, obviously the Archies, they had a TV show, they had albums, they had comic strips, but this, like the Chipmunks, were the first characters to just be artists, just to be a band. And at the time, they were pretty much anonymous. No one knew who was behind Gorillaz. People just watched MTV and saw these cool cartoon characters in a music video, and their minds were blown because who are the real people behind it? It was just these 4 cartoon characters, these spooky Cartoon Network looking guys. And eventually, after Clint Eastwood, which we played you, they'd release the music video for Tomorrow Comes Today. They released a music video for 19-2000, and they were a hit. They would go on to release Demon Days, which was an even bigger hit. You know, Feel Good Inc. by them. I'll get way more into it in probably a future episode, but it was a huge hit. Gorillaz were big. And in terms of how they would do live performances, which I think is super interesting, in 2001, when the group first toured for their first album, all of the music that they toured with, they'd be performing behind a screen. And so you would just kind of see their outline. That includes features, that includes guests. Everyone was behind a screen that would play the music videos when applicable. Otherwise, you would just see their outline and their silhouette behind a screen. Later on, when they toured in 2005 for Demon Days, they would tour again not behind a screen, but actually would just show their silhouettes. So there'd be no light on them. You just see their outline, but guests were brought out to the front. I have to take a sip of water. You can tell when I'm knowledgeable on something because I don't stop. In 2007, the Gorillaz Gorillaz, not the Gorillaz, that's a pet peeve of mine, and I'm guilty of it myself, would actually perform at the Grammys as holograms alongside Madonna. You can find that on YouTube. It's pretty neat. But hologram technology would end up going hand in hand with this technology of virtual artists or virtual bands, and Gorillaz were a part of it. They never really did holograms during concerts, but during the Grammys this one time, they danced and they sang with Madonna, would walk around her in a really cool looking way. That basically concludes the part I do want to mention about Gorillaz. But this also goes into a segment about a different blue-haired character that you all know and love. I have to take another sip of water because I have a lot written down for this one. Full disclosure, I'm going from someone or a group I know a lot about to one I don't know that much about. So before I even tell you what I'm talking about, why don't I just start? Let's talk about Vocaloids, which is not something I ever thought I'd be saying on this show, but I'm grateful I am. Vocaloids, for those who don't know, which I didn't really properly know at the time, are a software. Vocaloid is a software developed in Japan and originally went under the name Daisy as a reference to Daisy Bell, which we played you very early on, which was an IBM like machine that was programmed to sing. And they sang the song Daisy Bell, Daisy, Daisy, basically that. But they couldn't call it Daisy Bell because of copyright, so they went with Vocaloid. Now, Vocaloid was a program that was developed. Now, please correct, Quinn is here and listening. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was the part that was hardest to understand. That is explicitly what Vocaloid actually is, because I cannot find something that actually, you know what? Why don't I read you actually what it says that confused me so much? Because it's like Vocaloid 2 was an update to Vocaloid 1, and it told you the difference, but I didn't really understand the difference based on what it told me. So maybe you can explain the difference to me here, or I'll try my best to get it. Yeah, Vocaloid 2 was announced in 2007. Unlike the first engine, Vocaloid 2 based its synthesis on vocal samples rather than analysis of the human voice. On vocal samples instead of the human voice. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, okay. Okay, it's been explained to me now. The history of Miku was just explained to me in 10 seconds. I just downloaded it because I'm also a Vocaloid. Fun fact, this whole thing, I'm not real. You need to wake up. But that's a very Album Roulette joke. I used to make those jokes a lot. I need to stop going on tangents. Vocaloid is Japanese, and they released Vocaloid 1, and then they released Vocaloid 2, and it was a technology where you have like this voice bank of different audios that you could take from different characters. That I understood. I just didn't really understand the jump from 1 to 2. So you'd get on there, and you'd be like, you'd write a song, you'd write like a melody, and you'd write lyrics, and then you would choose a certain voice from different voice packs and apply that to the sound. And one of these voice packs wouldn't be introduced until Vocaloid 2, particularly on August 31st, 2007. That's right, she shares a birthday with my mom, and Dipper and Mabel from Gravity Falls. They developed this blue-haired girl who was like the most popular one. And here's something maybe even Quinn didn't know. Quinn, do you know where Hatsune Miku got her name? No. Here's what's interesting. So, let me find it here. I have it in my notes here. The word in Japanese meaning first is Hatsu, sound is ne, and future is Miku. So Hatsune Miku is the first sound of the future. How cool is that? And so, finally, one of the vocal packs in 2007 in Vocaloid 2 was Hatsune Miku, and was described as an android diva in the near future where songs are lost. That is the most awesome and most Japanese thing I've ever heard. That is really cool. And so, while Hatsune Miku herself was a character designed to fit this little box that you could buy, it was mostly marketed towards music producers because there weren't a lot of, and this is, I'm going to quote the Wikipedia page here, there weren't a lot of otakus at the time, which I realize is an official term, aka anime or manga fans. So at the time, it was mostly just a professional for people to buy, who were companies, but then a lot of fans started to grow. There was like an official 3D program released of a 3D model of Hatsune Miku that people could use. Now, if you don't know, which I'm realizing my mom might be watching, so Hatsune Miku, actually, can we throw up the main logo? Can I ask to do that? I know that's kind of a spur of the moment thing because I don't really have a visual for her. Yeah, okay, Hatsune Miku, there she is on the left there. Isn't she beautiful? There she is. She's in her cool outfit, cool blue hair. That's her. That's Hatsune Miku. That's Archie from the Archies right next to her in case you're wondering who that was. Okay, we can throw back to me. Hatsune Miku. So she was very popular. She was extremely popular. And because that her voice was sort of publicly accessible by anyone to make her sing anything, she was incredibly popular because it allowed for a lot of people to do whatever they wanted with her voice, with her creation, with her at all. So, for example, Supercell, a J-pop group in 2007 or 2008, would release a single called World Is Mine, and it would feature Miku as the vocalist, and it went to number 7 on iTunes. In 2009, Miku would do her first live performance as a hologram. And eventually, Aivan Polka, a Finnish song, was dubbed using the Miku program, and a little animation of her spinning a leek went viral, as well as several other Miku fan projects. A official 3D model was available, a voice was available, people went crazy for Miku. It was Miku Mania. There's a Miku anime, manga, video games, and now Miku is even in Fortnite. And to this day, she has over 100,000 songs to her Miku name. I think that basically. Oh, I also want to mention that the official voice of Hatsune Miku is Saki Fujita, which is a pet, which is who's still alive and in her 40s. So shout out to Saki, who is the voice of Hatsune Miku. At this point, I think they're on to Vocaloid 6, and they keep evolving in the programming. Miku can now sing in English, in Japanese, and she can now sing in Mandarin. So we love a multilingual queen. Why did I say that? Coming up after the music break, I'll be talking about more recent examples of not Vocaloids, but more contemporary virtual artists. Please don't forget that you can follow us on social media at the DCSA Media Hub. We're going to play you two things. We're going to play you World Is Mine by Hatsune Miku, a live video of her performing as a hologram, but also a more contemporary, more scary thing I didn't even know about until recently, called KDA, which you may know and I may not. In the meantime, like I said, World Is Mine by Hatsune Miku. I'll skip my social media this time. I'm a rebel. Live from the Media Hub on riotradio.ca. In all my years of doing a show at Riot Radio, I have never been less qualified to talk about something than whatever that is. Welcome back to Riot Radio. Welcome back to the Raedar. I'm Alex Ray of the Raedar on Riot Radio. Today we're talking about virtual bands. We've already talked about Gorillaz, we talked about Alvin and the Chipmunks, we talked about the Archies, and we've talked about Hatsune Miku. You were supposed to get a full 3 minutes of Hatsune Miku, but for some reason it only sent like 15 seconds. So for more Hatsune Miku adventures, go to www.hatsunemiku.com. Or, I'm assuming there's a real website, or just look it up on YouTube. But that is a really cool performance. I will admit, the song World Is Mine, which was the Miku song there, is really good. I was listening to it on the way here. It's a banger. I gotta hand it to Miku. You always gotta hand it to Miku. She's the GOAT. She wrote Harry Potter and she made Minecraft. Those facts, by the way, are on her Wikipedia page. But what we just played you there was Pop Stars by KDA, which, and I'm understanding this is a series of words that make sense somehow, is a not World of Warcraft, wow, a League of Legends K-pop group, which, I don't listen to K-pop, and I don't play League of Legends. So I don't really know. I mean, I did research, admittedly. I had to do research. I couldn't be like, those things are stupid. See you next week. So I did some research. They're not stupid. It just took a bit of an understanding because, frankly, that slip up of World of Warcraft versus League of Legends, those in my brain, indistinguishable. I know nothing about League of Legends. There's almost less than nothing. I really don't know anything. So to see that they've taken some of their characters and turned them into K-pop stars confuses and frightens me, frankly. As most music I listen to is about psychedelia and 60s and emotion. Not to say that this is bad. I don't want to be a boomer. I'm not going to be like, this is different, so I don't like it. I'm mostly playing into the bit that I listen to old music and it's different. This is totally different. This is absolutely out of my wheelhouse. And it's abstract. It's different to me. So it's super interesting. So the group is called KDA for, to my understanding, kill deaths and assists. Okay, so far so good. Don't love that I have to look to my girlfriend for League of Legends trivia, but you know. The group was made by selecting certain League of Legends characters and making a K-pop girl group. Now, I have questions because admittedly, I did the research about KDA on the bus ride here. Are these characters Korean? Were they Korean? The people who play them are. There's two, actually, I have in my notes here. Two of the singers are Miyeon and Seon of I-DIE, the K-pop group, except one of them is played by Madison Beer. What's going on? It's just a bizarre situation. Again, I'm sure it makes sense. The song's pretty good. I'll tell you that. I get music. I understand music. And the song's pretty good. The video's cool. It's fully animated. And it's cool looking, I guess, but it's completely out of my wheelhouse. I'm so not made to talk about this, but I had to, because when you look up virtual bands, KDA is massive. That's a big thing worth mentioning, is KDA is a big group that I've never heard of prior to recently. I've seen the video before, I think, somewhere, but I look up KDA. They have 2 million monthly listeners. That song, Pop Stars, has 409 million streams. What? You know, that to me, that blows my mind. Where have they been? Where are you, KDA? They premiered as holograms during their first concert at the League of Legends World Championships. So that's fun. And yeah, that's where they played their debut with using augmented reality. That's about all I had for KDA. Their song did top I had the charts. Yeah, went to #1 on the Billboard World Digital Song Sales chart, which I didn't even know was a thing. But that's a big part of their thing, is that their League of Legends characters turned into musicians. Now, I do have more time than I expected because we did go a little less Miku-y than I thought we were. So I do want to mention two things, which is, one more thing about Gorillaz is that in 2018, around the time I became a fan, Ace from Powerpuff Girls became a member. That's real. Ace from the Gangrene Gang, the villains in the Powerpuff Girls, became a canonical member to Gorillaz, the cartoon group. So that's a really cool feature of being a virtual group, is you could just add or take away characters. Another virtual group I want to mention that you may not know by name but might know a song from is Studio Killers. Studio Killers have a few songs you might recognize. There's one there I can't remember the name of, and there's one I do want to mention. I want to mention the one I don't remember the name of first, though. You might know Ode to the Bouncer, which is a really, really cute song. But their most popular song with 300 million streams is Jenny, I Want to Ruin Our Friendship. That's a beautiful song. Anyone in the studio know Jenny, I Want to Ruin Our Friendship? Banger. Yeah, okay. So they're fictional characters. So that's really cool. Also worth throwing a bone to Daft Punk, who, while aren't fictional characters, are anonymous, but they're real people performing on a real stage, so that doesn't count. And also one more thing I'll mention that I completely forgot to mention about Gorillaz is that after they did the silhouette thing for Demon Days, in Plastic Beach, they performed as a surrogate band because the cartoon characters were stuck in the dressing room. And then in 2017 with Humans, they just performed as normal. And for now they performed as normal. In Song Machine, they're normal. So now they're just performing. And it's just Damon Albarn and his band. And they're not really anonymous anymore, obviously. But that was a big part. Now, this all is segueing into me talking about the latest pop group to hit the scene, who I'll actually check right now in real time. Billboard Hot 100. Are they still #1 right now? They are not. Right now, The Fate of Ophelia by Taylor Swift is #1. Darn you, Taylor. #2, though, is what I'll be talking about today, which is the movie K-Pop Demon Hunters, which released in 2025, which, for once, I've seen. I actually watched it. A fully grown 22-year-old man sat down and watched K-Pop Demon Hunters because I was bored. And you know what? It's fun. It's a fun movie. I'd rather kids watch this than something that's bad for them. It's literally a movie about good versus evil, and I think that's sweet. And being true to yourself, that's also a big part of it. So that's fun, and that's super sweet. So K-Pop Demon Hunters is a movie released earlier this year on Netflix about the group Huntrix, which... am I the first person on Riot Radio to talk about K-Pop Demon Hunters? Because I really shouldn't be, but I think I might be. No? You did? Okay, thank God. I don't want that title. Not to say it wasn't good. It was great. But, like, this guy, it's fun. K-Pop Demon Hunters is all about this group called Huntrix who hunt demons, and they are K-pop. Can you gather that much? But I think over the years there was different iterations of this musical group that would hunt down demons in Korea, and now the latest is Huntrix. And they find out that there's a boy band who are actually demons, and they're what? The Sogu Boys? Is that how you say it? Soja Boys. Soja Boy Tell 'em. Saija Boys. The Saija Boys, which have that song Soda Pop. You're My Little Soda Pop. Fun fact, that song sucks. That's where I'll be a man about it. I don't like that one. However, I'll throw the Huntrix a bone. Golden is great. I think Golden's a great song. I was at work the other day and they played Golden for 3 seconds and I'm like, you know what they should play? They should play Golden more often. And I realized, oh, it is Golden. I think it's a great song. I don't listen to it very often, but when you're on the bus ride to school for 2 hours and all you're listening to is Sugar Sugar, the Chipmunk song, Clint Eastwood, The World Is Mine, Pop Stars, and Golden, Golden becomes one of your favorites of that list. And it's pretty good. And so Huntrix, this fictional group, released the soundtrack album, which is the soundtrack to the movie, and Golden was the biggest hit. You probably have recognized Golden. And part of me wants to be cynical. Part of me wants to be like, this stupid Korean K-pop like girl group. How dare they? I can't be like that because it's fun. It's a fun movie with fun characters, and it's a fun song. It's a fun pop song. And so you have this fictional group called Huntrix who have now been nominated for 4 Grammys and have been #1 multiple times. This song Golden and The Fate of Ophelia have just been like this over and over. And they're even nominated for Record of the Year. So full circle moment with Sugar Sugar going to #1 and Golden going to #1. So, and there's obviously going to be more Huntrix stuff in the future. They haven't performed as holograms yet, to my knowledge, but they have played live on Jimmy Fallon as the real people behind the music, which is pretty neat. I do have here EJ, who is in. Oh wow, she's been with a lot of the groups, with Red Velvet, aespa, Twice, and one I can't pronounce. She's been in like every single girl group. That's all of them, right? She voices Rumi in the soundtrack, which, by the way, isn't it impressive that I can watch an entire movie and not remember any of the names of the characters? But honestly, that basically concludes what I have written down here regarding virtual groups, because those are the big ones. Those are the major ones. If anyone in the studio wants to throw a name at me and I can tell you whether or not it's a virtual group or not, I can answer that. We've got time. Let's have fun. Nothing. That's okay. Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, the Muppet Group, kind of a virtual group. They've released music as Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, but it's kind of undetermined. Anything? Nothing? That's fine. I can't think of anything else. I did have other groups written down that are worth mentioning. One video I watched about this mentions the group Devar, which I've never heard of. They're Russian. Oh my God. Gummy Bear and Crazy Frog, they're virtual artists, technically. Gummy Bear is like, when you think of Gummy Bear, you don't think of like John Hermit, the guy who wrote Gummy Bear in 1969. No, you think of I Am a Gummy Bear, and you think of the character. Those are digital artists. Crazy Frog, admittedly, is a virtual artist. And honestly, that's pretty much it. The Wikipedia page for virtual artists is pretty not great. So, but I think honestly that's all I have for today. So I guess I'll call it there. Maybe I should leave like a question segment for the end of my show now. That could be fun if I do a deep dive. Let me see if anyone's messaged me about like, you forgot this. Nope, it's just my co-star saying intimacy is not reserved for explicitly romantic relationships. Okay, I don't know what that means. That's the end of our show today. I look forward to seeing you back here next week. Please don't forget that you can follow us on social media at the DCSA Media Hub. You can follow me on Instagram at AlexRae, that's R-A-E. You can follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at the Raedar Live, also R-A-E. In the meantime, on the Raedar, here is Golden by Huntrix, playing us out live from the Media Hub on riotradio.ca.